what we can say pretty inarguably is that Aamir Khan is, in the history of Indian cinema, one of the great defining personalities and characters. There are very few stars today who would actually bequeath a legacy that matches Aamir's legacy. There's lots of interesting things to be. Most film stars, as people who have known film stars will tell you, that film stars are an incredibly vapid and boring lot of people. I mean, Aamir is one of those odd people with whom you can engage, and the fact of that comes through in the cinema he makes and the cinema he backs. It's a pretty extraordinary achievement. The body of work that he's produced in the last 10 years, I don't think it can be matched in the history of Indian cinema. We have to really go back a long way to look at the great auteurs and actors, the Guru Dutts and the Raj Kapoors, to see this kind of 360-degree engagement with the business of making films, with a deeper understanding, and to be a big screen star oneself. So they've been great directors and they've been fantastic actors like Amitabh Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khan, but to find an engagement that goes both behind the camera, goes all the way back to scripting, now producing, funding, for someone who's a genuine 24-carat megastar himself, that's pretty extraordinary. So I think we're very fortunate that Aamir has actually come here. I'm actually going to go into the stuff that we seldom get to here. What I want to understand from you, Aamir, is, first of all, I see your career as having two distinct phases. There's a pre-Lagan phase, and then there's a post-Lagan phase. Clearly, there's something that happens at that point which elevates you into a different space in your head and in a different space vis-a-vis your vocation. Can you share with this audience what happens pre-Lagan and post-Lagan, and what is the shift that takes place that moves you into a different space altogether as a cinema person?
You know, Tarun, I've been asked this earlier and I don't have an answer. Because from where I am, I have been working the same way right through my career. I have always picked scripts that I've liked, and sometimes in the making of the film, we haven't ended up making what we set out to, which has been disappointing. But at other times, we have achieved what we set out to, and that is very satisfying. I've always done that, and maybe, I suppose all of us, grow as people, and we kind of change as people. And so maybe around, that time I was changing more or whatever, I don't know. But, I mean, I've always done films that I've enjoyed doing. I mean, Sarfarosh, for example, was before Lagan. I think Jo Jeeta Wohi Sikandar is a great story, and that's one of my earlier films, or even Rangila. Perhaps what did happen is that with each year that I was in the film industry and with each success that I kept getting, it gave me more and more strength to be able to do even more what I wanted, or to go a step further in taking a chance. I remember when I was producing Lagan, it was a script that nobody liked, and I mean, I just loved the script, and it was a very difficult decision for me to produce that film, because while I loved the script, at that point of time, my mind was telling me that this is a film that, based on what is happening around us, it's not going to work. But I just loved it, and then I said, yeah. When I look at, film people who I admire and whose work I've always loved, and I've seen the kind of risks they've taken probably in their times of their careers, and I said, yeah, if I really do love their work and admire them, then I must show the same courage that they have shown and just do what I feel like doing. And so Lagan, in that sense, was perhaps one of the big decisions for me, of actually producing it myself and backing something which was so unusual. Today we look at Lagan, and in today's sensibility of our cinema, Lagan is very acceptable. Yeah. But when I was in '99 saying yes to the project, it was a huge risk. So I think with each year, with each success, I think I got more strength to do what I felt like doing. Yeah.
But two things happen very often when people taste success. One is they become even more cautious. Most people become even more cautious because they want to protect the success. So what's the kind of gene that's working here which says, all right, I've done really well, You know, most people when they have a successful product are afraid of the next one because they think they're going to be tested against what's gone by. They have much more to lose. So what's the gene at work which keeps pushing you to say, and when we talk about this, I actually want you to share the process with everyone here because I know you and I know that there is a process that you go through when you start beginning to engage with the film. Share with them the process. How does it happen? How does People Life get made? How does Delhi Belly get made? How do films that are completely coming out of nowhere suddenly arrive and grab your time and attention and money and end up as absolutely path-breaking projects?
Well, you know, the thing is that I have to admit that the fear factor is there in me also. So with success, you're right, you have a lot more to lose and then you're wondering whether this will work or not. So with each film that I do, it's not that I'm now fearless or I'm, you know, every time that I've, you know, embarked on a film, in the first few stages of the film, starting, you know, when we start working on it, I'm always like, my God, have we done the right thing? Matlab, kuch lafda hone wala hai, and you know, that nervousness is always there and the stress is always there, the fear is always there, so it hasn't ever gone. But to give you an example, for example, let's say Delhi Belly. Now Delhi Belly, how did it happen? It happened one day, I was answering an email, my wife Kiran was getting impatient with me and we were supposed to go out somewhere. And she said, come on, hurry up. And there's usually a big pile of scripts lying on my study table. And while waiting for me, she picked up a script and began reading it. And then she started laughing and she kept laughing. And after like 5 minutes, she was rolling on the floor. So I said, what are you reading here? And she said, this is a really bizarre, really funny script. So I said, what's it called? And she said, whatever, Delhi Belly. And the way she was laughing right through that reading, eventually we didn't go out that night. After she finished reading the script, I began reading it. And then I just cracked up. I found it really funny. And then I called the guys, you know, whose name was written on it. They are these two boys from LA who had come down to Bombay and who had spent 2 months trying to meet me and I couldn't meet them. And they had just reached back to LA. So when I called that number, they said, oh, we just reached back. And then I said, I just read your script, I liked it, and they came over. And then we began to make it. Now, it's a very unusual script for sure. And for Indian cinema, it's primarily in English. Also, it's extremely irreverent, a lot of abusive language. It's not stuff that we are used to seeing, you know, coming out of Indian cinema. But I just thought it was fun. So, yes, there's a lot of risk involved. Now, what I try to do, each of these films, whether it was Rang De Basanti, which was 4 Bhagat Singhs had been made previous year, or Tare Zameen Par, or any of these stories are very lovely scripts to begin with, you know. And what I try to do is that first I go with my heart and my creative instinct and my emotion as a human being. I just love something, I want to do it. When we actually sit down to do it, we try and then that's when my practical side kicks in. And I want to make sure that while we are experimenting, while we are doing something unusual and different, I don't want to fail at it. And in most cases, when we talk of cinema, which is a business along with, you know, a creative art, what fails often is the budgeting of the film. And so if you're practical about what the potential of a film is, and then you aim for that scale, and you manage to pull it off in that, you know, like Tare Zameen Par cost us 8 crores to make, which is 1/3 the budget of Lagan. And it was made almost 8 years after Lagan. So if you look at the practical side, you can actually make sure you don't lose money at least. So I believe as a creative person, I want to do what I want to do. And I want to have the freedom to do what I want to do. But along with that freedom comes a responsibility. I don't want the market to lose money on me. I don't want anyone to lose money on me. You know, I grew up in a household, I mean, my father is a producer, he made a lot of successful films, but he never made money. He was always in debt. He was, you know, for years on end, we'd have people calling up and people he'd borrowed money from, and, you know, from the market, and he couldn't return the money for very long. And so he had a lot of financial problems right through. So I've seen a producer go through all of that. I've seen people in the market go through all of that. Distributors, sub-distributors, theater owners. When a film doesn't do well, how it has a cascading effect. So I guess I grew up you know, having observed all of that, and I realized that if I really want to do the kind of cinema I want to do, then I should always make sure that no one loses money. I mean, I don't want to experiment on someone else's money. I don't want anyone to lose money. So I try and be responsible to the market. And I don't earn in the process, if it so happens. So what I do is I don't sell my films at an exorbitant price, which I can afford to with my name attached today with the success that I have. I don't do that. Instead, I take the risk of releasing the film. So the money side of it, what I try and do is, like, you know, you have these street performances when people perform and there's people standing and watching, then you finish the performance and you take your hat out and you go and collect money.
Right. Well said.
If people have liked your show, they'll put money in it. If they haven't liked your show, they'll walk away. So I believe in that. I believe that if people have liked my film, then more tickets will be sold, and eventually I'll get that money.
I have to just tell the audience that he's probably the only major actor in Hindi cinema, because he also backs and produces films, who pretty much often tail ends his own earnings, which means he doesn't take the big money up front. He says, we'll make the film, but this is what I'll take if the film succeeds. And that's really having self-belief in what you're pursuing and putting yourself out on the line. Aamir, you spoke about how the kind of financial vicissitudes of your own childhood in some sense impacted your own approach to the business of filmmaking. Tell us a little bit more about what it was about your childhood that has shaped you as a cinema person, because you come from a cinema family, you know, and as you come from a conventional cinema family, you know, I mean, people who were involved in conventional cinema, and you've then made this marriage where you've kind of made a bridge between conventional and the unconventional, or you know. So what else is it about the childhood and your own experience living in this bubble of cinema, because you guys were born into it? What was it about it that has actually shaped your own filmmaking?
I think a number of things when I look back. I mean, at that time when I was a kid, I didn't realize all these things were, that I was absorbing all of this. But I think today when I look back, I realize that first and foremost, the thing I loved about being part of a film family is you get to hear stories. So a lot of writers and directors would come and meet my dad and my uncle, and they would pitch stories and say, you know, Tar sahab, ek young ladki ki kahani hai, wo bichara ye kar raha hai, wo kar raha hai, you know, whatever. So I used to love to listen to stories. So hopefully if it would be a Sunday or a Thursday, my school had a Thursday off. So I would be at home and then, you know, there was a story session going on. I would sit in a corner and listen to the story. Not because I ever wanted to be in the films, but because I just loved listening to stories. So I would listen to a lot of stories. I've heard hundreds of ideas pitched, even, you know, full scripts, etc. Then there would be Bhappi Lady coming with his harmonium and tabla, and, you know, playing music for my dad, and Pancham uncle, and, you know. So I've grown up watching music being created. I've been through the various processes of filmmaking. You know, a film is 20% complete. We have a screening. It's 80% complete. We have a screening. You've been through editing. So I was learning a lot of these things without actually realizing that I'm actually learning how to make films. The other thing that I think I've really learned from my dad and my uncle is two very important things here. One of them is that what they've taught me is that you have to be a team player. You know, filmmaking is about teamwork, and today whatever success I've achieved, it looks like it's my success, but the fact is that all of these films have been written by writers who have come up with lovely scripts. You know, whether it's Rang De Basanti or Tare Zameen Par or Lagan, I haven't written these scripts. 3 Idiots, I've not written it. So these are script writers who've written wonderful scripts. They're directors who've made great films. The DOPs have done a wonderful job. The sound designers have done a wonderful job. The music directors, the lyric writers, each one of the people in each of these films that I look back with a lot of satisfaction have had a great team working on it. So one of the big things I learned from both my uncle and my dad was that filmmaking is teamwork, and when a whole team works well, that's when a film comes out well. That was one. The other thing is that what I learned from them and picked up from them is the values that they lived with. My father and my uncle both were very straight people, and that's what I admired about them as human beings. So I think that's an important thing I've imbibed from them. the values with which they worked.
You've just given a great deal of credit to your scriptwriters and your directors. Now tell me, is it the fact that you have a fantastic eye in being able to pick talent? Or is it the case that you put a huge multiplier into ordinary talent? Because a lot of the people who have succeeded hugely with you have actually not when they've been without you. And this includes directors and scriptwriters. So what is the kind of quality of multiplier that you end up putting into any project, that lifts both the director and the scriptwriter?
You know, I feel I've worked with really talented people. Certainly I have contributed to each of my films. And perhaps I have contributed not just as an actor, but as a film person. And I'm also glad that my directors, the people that I've worked with, have had the kind of relationship with me that they have, invited my participation.
So give the audience a sense. Let's pick Rang De Basanti or Lagan. So let's say at the script level, what would your level of engagement be?
Okay, Lagan on the script level, I just did a bit of editing on the script. The original had the cricket match was a 2-inning match. So the film is 4 hours, it would have been 8 hours. And so I told Ashu, I said, Ashu, 2 innings mat kar bhai. 1 inning mein hum log kar lenge yaar jo karna hai. So my contribution to the script was I made it a 1 inning and not a 2 inning. Otherwise, the script was as it is.
Screenplay?
Screenplay also, I had nothing to contribute, very minor, maybe just 1 or 2 things here and there. I had a major amount of contribution perhaps in the post-production, in the edit. The edit of the film.
Tell us about that.
Well, the first cut was around 7.5 hours. No, I'm not exaggerating, it really was. The portion up till the cricket match was 4.5 hours. And each day of the cricket, there are 3 days of the cricket in the film. Each day of the cricket was 1 hour, so it was about 7.5 hours. So when we had the first screening, all of us were shell-shocked. And we were so tired by the end of it, we were like, my God. And then I remember Anil Mehta, we saw the film, at a private screening hall, and then we were driving back to the office. So Anil Mehta and I were driving back together, and Anil was ashen-faced, he was like, all of us thinking we've spent 2 years of our lives making this film. And it's just a piece of shit. So we were driving back and Anil said, "To, abhi kya hoga?" So I said, "Anil, super hit hai apni picture." I was saying it partly to give him some encouragement, but partly I believed that it wasn't cut, the way of course it was also the first cut. I mean, Ashu as a director had just done the first cut. And it really needed, a first cut of 7 hours is not a joke. So we had a lot of work to do. And then I sat with Ashu on the edit. So I think my major contribution in Lagan was probably on the edit.
So how many days or weeks would you have sat on the edit?
Oh, we probably cut it for 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we worked on the final cut for about 6 months. And went back and forth, and it was a very enjoyable process because Ballu, the editor, and Ashu and I also really enjoyed the process of going through each scene, figuring out where to cut it, keeping the essence as it is. But and remember, Lagan, you can't mess with the pace so much because it is a slightly classical format. If you hurry it too much, you lose the flavor of the film, which you can't afford to do. So it was a tricky thing, but we enjoyed the process. I really love the editing process. I have to say a lot of my contribution, like even in Rang De perhaps, has come in the post-production stage.
I have to
in Rang De, I also actually ended up contributing in the climax. I ended up suggesting to them what the climax.
What was it originally?
Originally, what was the climax is that after we end up killing the defense minister, we try to escape from the city. And each one of us gets shot in different places. So I asked Mehra, I said, "Yeah, I love your script. The end doesn't make sense to me because why are they running? Do they feel they've done something wrong? Because essentially they feel they've done something right. Why are they running?" So he was like, "Yeah, why are they running?" So So I said, I don't think they should run, and also because throughout the film, you've kept a parallel. Throughout the film, your parallel is Bhagat Singh and his era and the current guys. And I said, Bhagat Singh didn't run away. In fact, he threw a bomb in the parliament and gave himself up, and through the court proceedings, expressed what he had to say. So he got arrested by choice and then expressed what he had to. So I said, even these guys, therefore, shouldn't run away. Keep the parallel that you've kept throughout the film. Keep it till the end. And so he said, so what do you think, what should it be? And there was a story that I had written many years ago for myself. And I had written this climax, you know, where in my version there were two guys. And it reaches a situation where they need to communicate with society. So they forcibly enter a television studio and they take over by force the television studio, and then because they are going on live, they can start talking to people. So I took that and I told Mehra, I said, yaar, ye kahani meri ek thi jo main ab to khair banaunga nahi because the climax is gone. But he liked it, and so we fitted that climax into Rang De Basanti, and that's how Rang De Basanti. So it depends, sometimes my contribution, like Tare Zameen Par, the script was as it is. I had I had nothing to contribute. It was entirely Amol's script. Of course, there I was a director myself. But in Three Idiots, for example, I had very little to contribute.
Raju wasn't fully.
Raju is a great writer, he's a great director. So I think it depends, to different degrees. Perhaps in Three Idiots, the contribution I made was a lot on my character. Because the way Raju had written it originally, Rancho was a guy who was he had all the funny, smart one-liners, and he was a bit of a hero. So in his introduction, if you've seen the film, when they're ragging the first year guys, he walks in and he gives some smart comments and shock walk de deta hai. But the whole scene was written with a lot of hero-giri, and he's the guy who's giving the one-liners and all of that. And even with the principal after that, he's constantly scoring, And the attitude the writers had taken, Raju and Abhijat, was that he's a bit cocky, I felt, So I said, Raju, I have one fear. I like the script, I have one fear. Rancho, right now, the way you've written him, by the time 1/3 of the film is over, people are going to get really irritated with him. इतना डेढ़ शाना है वो यार, हर चीज के लिए he's got an answer, and he's got no flaws.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to play a character which has got no flaws, because the audience doesn't love you. They may admire you, but they don't love you. They emotionally they're not attached to you. Farhan's character, which is played by Maddie, your heart goes out to him because he actually wants to do something else. His father is, giving him a hard time, and his heart is in something else, and he's crying, and he wants to do that. Sharman's character has got, he's very poor, his father is unwell, his mother is constantly washing bartans. But your heart goes out to him because, he's scared, he's constantly praying, so you feel, arey yaar, poor chap. But Rancho has got no problem in life. He's very good in studies, he's very smart, he's giving left, right and all, sabko, So I said, yaar, he'll get on your nerves. After a point, he'll really get on your nerves. So he said, what do you suggest? I said, what I suggest is that I don't play it the way you've written it. You've written it over smart. Let me not play it that way. So let me play it that he's very excited and he's very childlike and he's very curious. So he's saying the same things, but he's not saying it to be funny. For example, with the principal, when the principal says, ये astronaut pen है और ये space में भी चलता है फलाना डिमका पता नहीं कितने बिलियन का है और जो अच्छा स्टूडेंट रहेगा उसको मैं दूंगा and all that. 32 साल से मैंने किसी को दिया नहीं है. Rancho is like, अरे यार, why didn't the astronauts use a pencil? So his mind has already gone to that. So when the speech gets over, he says, sir, why didn't they use a pencil? No, he's actually asking it very, he's excited. Everyone laughs. He looks behind, के लोग हंस क्यों रहे हैं? मैं joke तो नहीं कर रहा हूँ, मैं तो actually पूछ रहा हूँ. So what I did is I tried to make him a guy who's just curious, like when he tells the principal that kya first school hai yaar? What first?
So does it irritate your friends that you have no flaws?
नहीं यार. No, I
Okay,
no,
let me rephrase that question. I was once talking to Imran the first time I met him, your nephew, and I said, listen, boss. Ab nahi, apna Imran.
Acha, my nephew.
Your nephew. So I told Imran, I said, boy, you're so much better looking than your Mamu. So he held my hand and said, please don't tell Mamu that. Mamu's damn competitive, I'll be in trouble. So I know you were a tennis champ. You played tennis at the state and national level when you were in school. Has sport and the kind of discipline and metabolism of sport also in some sense shaped the kind of person you are even in filmmaking, you know?
Actually, in a strange way, you know, I haven't thought of it, but now that you asked me this question, it suddenly struck me. I used to be pretty good at tennis, you know, and my parents were rather unhappy about that because I was not studying, you know, as a result, I would never be in school or, you know, I would spend 5 hours a day on the tennis court. So I remember they said, isko टेनिस का भूत सवार हो गया तो इसका स्कूल बदलो. So they put me in Bombay Scottish, which was another school, which basically the timings were 9 to 5. Earlier the school used to get over by 1 o'clock. So 2 o'clock I was on the court. तो अभी 5-6 बजे तक मैं घर आता था. I couldn't play tennis, so I missed out on my, you know, practice time. But I still entered the inter-school and, you know, the tournaments. So I realized that, yeah, I'm not playing as well. I mean, we luckily still won the inter-school, but I wasn't on that level, obviously, if you're not playing every day. And then, of course, they just stopped my tennis entirely because they felt I should really concentrate on my studies. So my tennis got stopped, but my studies didn't benefit in any way because of that. But what I learned on that, I remember, you know, you're asking me this and I'm remembering that when I became an actor, I realized in the early years of my career, I said, yaar, wo jo ghalti maine tennis mein ki na, of not practicing, wo main isme nahi karunga. I'm not going to allow myself to fall short in any way. Because I used to feel really horrible when I used to not play as well as I thought I could play, or as well as I wanted to play. So I remember that thought coming to me repeatedly in the early years of my career as an actor. That the mistake I made over there. So maybe in that sense, it made me more sharper in my application towards what I'm doing. And I, you know, decided that I cannot leave any stone unturned towards whatever I'm doing. But the overall thing, you know, the most important thing, Tarun, is, yes, I'm competitive, a lot of us are competitive, but the bottom line is that I enjoy what I'm doing. And not only do I enjoy what I'm doing, I enjoy what other people are doing. Which means that when I say Munna Bhai, I'm not in Munna Bhai, and I don't even know Raju at that point of time. I was floored by the film, yeah, I loved it. And the film gave me so much joy. I mean, I thought it's the best film I'd seen, you know, Munna Bhai Lage Raho, with Gandhiji in it. And it's not my film, but I just loved the way Sanju performed it, I just loved the way Raju directed it. So, if I'm just competitive, I'll not feel that. You know, when I see Dilwale, for example, Shah Rukh's film, I just think it's a fab film, and I think Shah Rukh has done exceptionally well in that film. So when I look at someone's work, I think Ranbir is a hugely talented actor. When I look at someone's work, I may be competitive, but that's on a very side level. What's more important to me is that I get really happy when I see good work. Whether it's my good work or other people's good work, it just gives me joy. And I think that is what makes me what I am, because I enjoy what I'm doing.
Also you know, I mean, if there's one trait that defines stars and certainly superstars, it's narcissism, you know. I mean, this is the great narcissism of the mirror, the narcissism of fans. With someone like you, I always feel you live with a much deeper narcissism, which is about a legacy, you know. And And it's not the obvious narcissism, because I know you have extremely ordinary friends. Your trip in life is not...
narcissism bhi hai.
That happened. Okay. But obviously, clearly, there's a much deeper narcissism about the legacy and about the body of work and about the quality of the work that's being done. That's very unusual in Indian cinema. You know, you really have to go all the way back, I said, to Guru Dutt and Bimal Roy, and at least Guru Dutt and Raj Kapoor were also stars themselves. But you have to really go back all the way there to find that quality of narcissism which says, what I'm creating has a life beyond just the day's box office. There is something here that it's an art form. I'll make it simpler. That it's also an art form. It's a money game, it's an entertainment game, it's a spectacle, but it's also an art form, and this has to be pulled off with some degree of excellence, that as much of excellence as I can summon.
Yeah, you know, I don't, that's not how I'm looking at it, I have to say. When I'm doing my films, right from QSQT onwards, I never thought कि मैं कुछ ऐसी film बना रहा हूँ जो बहुत साल बाद लोग याद करेंगे, or you know, or Lagan, when we were making Lagan, I wasn't thinking that, oh, here's a film I'm making. So I don't think I've been thinking like that.
Is it important for you hugely?
Today it is. I mean, if you ask me if you ask me a direct question, is it important for you to leave behind a legacy of work that you're proud of? Yes, of course it is. But that's not why I'm doing that film, or that's not why I'm working the way I'm working. I'm working because I like that script and I want to do it. You know, if you told me that Lagan is going to be a flop, which everyone told me in any case, and you should not do it because it's going to be a disaster, I'll still do it because I love it. So you take any of my films, everyone who loved me told me don't do Lagan. They all said don't do Rang De Basanti. 4 दफा बन चुकी है यार, तुम फिर बनाने जा रहे हो, हद हो गई. Tare Zameen Par, I remember a very good friend of mine, when I showed him the film, my first test screening of Tare Zameen Par, my friends almost beat me up. I'm not kidding. Prasun ji, aap to the वहाँ पे. Aamir or Kareem and all of them, they said, you know, you made a documentary, क्या बना दिया तुमने? A friend of mine told me, इसको release मत करो. कुछ करो इसको यार, कितना खर्चा किया? 8 crore मैं देता हूँ यार, तुम इसको release मत करो. So people didn't like, they were being protective, you know, because people who loved me felt, पता नहीं मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ. But I enjoyed what I'm doing and I believed in what I was doing, and so I did it. It was not with the thought that here's something I'm making which is going to be, which is going to stand the test of time. All of us hope that, all filmmakers hope that I would make a film which stands the test of time, and if you can have one such film in your career,
you've done well.
You know, you've done well. So all of us would like that, but you can't plan that. You just can't plan that. You have to, I really believe that more of us need to feel a little more free in our hearts to do what we actually feel like doing. And that may not make sense to the market, but then you have to be responsible. But you should do it. Importantly, I think more of us will start making better and better films if we do what we believe in doing and if we do what we really feel like doing, as opposed to what we feel people would like to watch. And you know, more importantly, the result of that will be that at least you'll make what you want. At least, even if you fail on your terms, you fail doing what you set out to do. And at least one person will be happy with the film, that's you. Because you have no idea how other people are going to react in any case.
Is Aamir, the secret of your connect with audiences, you know, audiences that range from all classes, is all the way right up to the top?